Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today we're going to be looking at another boutique black rifle. This is another one of the ones that I had built based off of some of the finest components in the industry, at least in my opinion. I mean, as you know, if you want to build one of these rifles, there's just option after option: rails, front sight bases, flash suppressors, upper receivers, bolt carrier groups, everything. This particular rifle is one of my favorites. It is, it's not a light rifle. It's probably going to be up around the 9 pound area. However, it has a lot of the some of the nicest features that you really can put on one of these rifles. Now we're going to take a closer look at this rifle and all its various components. We're going to zoom in and look at all the details. This build is basically built around the AXTS lower receiver. AXTS is out of Oregon, I believe. They are a machine shop, and I have to say, of all the lower receivers that I've seen in the industry, this has got to be one of the finest that's out there. The machining, the innovation that went into it. It's manufactured from a billet of 7075 T6 aircraft aluminum. You can see it's got sort of a similar pattern as the Magpul magazines. You also notice it says ADAC. What that has to do with is the way the bolt will lock open to the rear. If you notice on the right here, we have it's a bolt release. Now this is strictly a bolt release. You cannot hold the bolt open or lock the bolt open from the right hand side. However, if this weapon was to malfunction, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to drop the magazine out and you're going to clear that malfunction. What the ADAC is, it's the ability to lock the bolt open to the rear by use of the magazine release. So as you would pull the bolt back, push it on the magazine release, it will lock it open. So this will enable you to drop your magazine out, make sure that it's clear, insert your magazine, and then you hit your bolt release and it'll go. Now you also notice we have a ambidextrous safety on here also. This is another AXTS product. This is probably one of the highest profile ones in the industry. It's easy to get even with the heaviest of gloves. As you can also see, the trigger guard is actually part of the forging. The pistol grip is my staple. It's the Magpul Naiad grip. In my opinion, it's probably one of the most comfortable, if not the most comfortable in the industry, especially when you have mitts the size of mine. Now we're going to turn the rifle over. Also, you'll notice, of course, you have the ambidextrous safety, but take a look at the bolt catch here. This is an oversized bolt catch, which it's awesome. You hit it with the palm of your hand. You're definitely not going to miss it. So as you can also see, we have an ambidextrous magazine release as well. Again, this is my opinion is probably, if not one of or the finest low receiver in the industry. Now going back to look a little bit more about the AXTS company, going back 3 years ago, they had decided that they were going to get into making complete weapons. So when this receiver first came out, these were available for individual purchase, just the lower receivers. So a decision was made a couple years ago that they were going to stop selling just components and they were going to sell complete lower receivers, meaning they were going to stop selling the lower receivers and they were going to go with a complete rifle. So they had pulled these off the market. Over the last 6 months or so, AXTX was relaunched as a new company. It was called the Radian Weaponry. Radian Weaponry is very much the AXTS equipment. However, they've expanded quite a bit more. And I was just actually told by Mr. Underwood over at Radian, or he's also the president of AXTS at the time, that they're going to be, after SHOT Show, they're going to be releasing these lower receivers for sale just as the lower receivers again. So I'm actually pretty excited about that. So we're going to turn it back over. Okay, now starting on the rear, this is another one of my normal staples. We have the Valtor mod stock, as well as the Valtor receiver extension. As you can see, you have numbers on the top that let you know exactly where you're at, for as far as your position. We also have the SACE, which is a Valtor receiver extension plate. As you can see, we have the hook, and this is actually a Magpul sling that has the lockable clamp on it. The charging handle is also AXTS, or we can also go ahead and call that Radian as well. This is called the Raptor. This is an extremely well-made charging handle. As you can see, it's fully ambidextrous. And it's nice out and aggressive, so you're able to grab it with your hand very, very easily. They've sold these to Rainer Arms. I have seen these on several OEM guns as well. They also make this in 308, but it's another excellent product. It's by Radiant Arms. The upper receiver is actually the Valtor MUR. The Valtor, again, is a machine of 775 T6 aircraft grade aluminum. This particular one has the shell deflector as well as the forward assist. This forward assist is extremely nice. It's made by Iron Viper. It's actually manufactured from steel. This is the original teardrop style. And if you notice, you have some very aggressive stippling on the back too, so your hand is not going to slip off of it. Extremely well made. We'll take a look at the inside in a few minutes. If we look at the handguard, this is the it's a Centurion Arms C4. This has got to be probably one of my favorite handguards. Centurion Arms is actually run by a retired Navy SEAL, Monty LeClaire. He actually was running this business while he was still active duty as well. This handguard has become very popular with OEMs. It attaches right to the barrel nut. It's completely free floated. You can also see it has the QD attachment points on it as well. You'll also notice on the handguard the Manta rail protector covers. These are, in my opinion, the finest rail protectors in the industry. This is not just for protecting the rail from damage. It's also probably the best. It is the best one in the industry for as far as heat, protecting your hand from the heat. The material is, well, it's unobtainium. Frank Michael will not tell anybody what it actually is made out of. But this same material is used on a suppressor sleeve, which is basically a sleeve that goes over a sound suppressor. To give you sort of an idea of how heat resistant it is, I actually went through 3 magazines on full auto with the suppressor on and the suppressor sleeve. I was able to actually hold the whole firearm by just holding onto the suppressor with the sleeve on it. Also, molded inside of these panels themselves is actually a steel clip. And what that clip does is it enables you to adjust it for, let's say, rails that are not particularly to drawing. So if you have something that's undersized, you'll be able to clamps it up a little bit. I have these on all sections here. This also is made by Manta as well. This goes around the vertical pistol grip. And if you notice, there's a little bit of a pocket in here. What that pocket is for is if you were to have a flashlight, you would slide in your pressure pad right into there, and you'd be able to use it as a pressure pad. And of course, we have to do our Hail to the Republic, the great state of Texas. The barrel itself is actually an FN hammer forged barrel. This is probably one of the finest military barrels in the industry. Again, hammer forged, chrome plated, 107-inch twist, and it's also a mid-length gas system. Those of you who aren't familiar with the actual gas system lengths, you have basically 3. Well, there's 4. You have a pistol length, you have a carbine length, you have a mid-length, and you have a full length rifle. What the mid-length does is it finds a sweet spot in between the carbine and the rifle, where it increases your reliability by increasing the dwell time. Increasing the dwell time, basically what that's going to do is it's going to give your cartridge case more time to contract before it's actually extracted. With the carbine, your port pressures is about double that of a regular rifle. So what's happening is when you have that double port pressure, when the bolt's actually unlocking, the cartridge case is still slightly operated. And what that does is it makes the cartridge case stick a little bit longer, so it causes the extractor to work a lot harder. And as the barrel wears through its natural lifetime, you get more gas port erosion, which allows more gas in, which can eventually cause failures to extract, in a very well-worn barrel. The mid-length gas system, I think, is probably a significant reliability enhancement. Again, with that easier extraction, that's one of the main problems that the M4 has always had, because that severely increased port pressure. It was driving everything back much faster. When it drives much back faster, you also will have parts wear a lot quicker. I think this is for reliability and durability. I think the mid-length gas system is really the way to go. We also have attached to this is actually pinned in place, another one of my favorite products. This is the Arms 40L Silhouette. Basically what this is a folding front sight base. All it takes is a finger to engage it. It gives it your traditional triangular shape. And then to re-engage it, you just push down and slide back. Now this one's available in two different configurations. One actually has locking bolts on the side where you can use a hex wrench and lock it in place. However, this one is actually designed for OEMs where it's actually one you would drill and pin in place. Particularly, I'm fond of drilling and pinning. I'm not that fond of the ones that actually clamp on the barrel. So this is another one of the features that I tend to like quite a bit. This is a Voltor flash suppressor. It's very much a flash hider. It's not a compensator. It works extremely well. Very pleased with this performance. The optic chosen on this one is actually the Aimpoint Comp 4. This was the first generation of it. If you notice, the battery compartment is on the top. A lot of military people complained about the location. They said it was too high. So in the second generation, they actually moved it, the battery compartment down to the bottom here. The Aimpoint, this is actually the 3-power magnifier. It's on an ARMS number 78 TITS mount. Now TITS does actually stand for something, tangent something or other, but I'm not quite sure what it is. As you push forward and you drop over, a lot of people put these over onto the right side. I actually have it onto the left side. That's where I prefer it, but it can go this can go either way just by swapping it around. And again, the Comp 4 is also on an ARMS throw lever mount as well. The rear sight is the ARMS 40LP or 40L Precision. You pull the lever back, it engages. If you look from the rear, with both apertures closed, you have the small long-range aperture. You pull that back, now you have the larger short-range aperture. The windage adjustment is on the left-hand side. And you just pull back on the lever, drop the sight back, and you're in a folded position. These are very low profile. Pushing forward again. This sight here is actually the M76, if I recall, U.S. military optic. It's been issued for quite some time, and it's two different configurations. This particular one takes a AA battery. It is a very well tried and true battle optic. We're going to take a little bit of look at the inside here now. Looking at the lower receiver, the actual buffer system that's in here is actually JP Enterprise's silent buffer mechanism. What this does here is it gets rid of that boing that you'll hear in the stock. I've been using this for quite some time. It definitely gets rid of that distracting noise. I'm very fond of it. Now, the trigger mechanism in here is probably, well, it is my favorite one in the industry. For an assault rifle, I'm not one who actually really likes the double-stage triggers. I prefer double-stage triggers on precision rifles. This trigger here is actually manufactured by a company called Hyperfire. The gentleman who designed this, Mr. Terry Bender, is literally a rocket scientist. He worked for NASA as a rocket scientist. So he wanted to build, the best single-stage trigger out there. Well, one of the things that when you actually build a trigger, you want to make it lighter. And generally the first place people go is they lighten up the hammer spring. It's all well and good. It does lighten up the trigger pull a little bit, but what it does is it decreases the actual force that's used to hit the firing pin, which detonates the cartridge. So Terry actually completely redid the geometry, and he was able to make a beautiful one-stage trigger without having the issue of losing the strike force on the primer. If you notice these two toggle springs, what that does is that's what gives you that additional power that you would have by loosening the standard hammer spring. There's also some different colors. You can actually adjust it within a quarter pound or so, up and down with the use of the 3 sets of different toggle springs. It is just rapid fire works beautiful, and it just breaks clean. There's no creep. It's just an absolutely gorgeous trigger. Hyperfire has an entire line of triggers, everything from combat triggers like this. They actually have some which are more of the AR type, more of the GI type, where it's got some modification done to it, but it's a hell of a lot better than the original GI trigger. And he goes right up to long range type triggers that are match, that have adjustable trigger shoes. He just has a complete line of these precision triggers. What we're going to take a look at now is the actual bolt carrier group itself. Now, we've all heard of all these wonder finishes. We've heard about the nickel boron, the nitride, manganese phosphate. I have to say that my finish of choice on a bolt carrier group is good old-fashioned chrome. To me, this is the ideal finish. Chrome has a couple of really neat properties to it. One, when it gets dirty, it wipes right off. As long as the rag can reach the location, it'll wipe right off. Two, it's corrosion resistant. And three, when chrome heats up, you get some self-lubrication properties to it, which works good for the bolt into the carrier. Now, as many as you may know, that when Stoner originally designed the AR-10, he had a chrome-plated bolt carrier group. The chrome-plated bolts and bolt carrier groups went right through the XM16E1, the Model 01s, and it was actually dropped towards the M16A1. And the reason it was dropped was actually for a couple reasons. First and foremost, cost. Chrome plating the entire bolt carrier group was a lot more expensive than having a manganese phosphate. Manganese phosphate has very similar protection. Two was, in those days, in the early 60s, Colt did not do the chrome plating in-house. So what happened was it was farmed out to several different companies. And the chrome plating process was not as refined as it is today. If it wasn't done properly, you would have cracks in it, moisture or whatever would get into those cracks, and it would cause flaking and embrittlement. And it would actually cause corrosion on the actual bolt carrier group. Well, now this process has been completely perfected. Those problems no longer exist. This bolt carrier group was actually made by Ron Smith at Smith Enterprises. Now, Ron has been making these bolt carriers since the 80s. He's probably the longest person, still manufacturing chrome-plated bolt carriers who's made them way back when. This is my preference. If I had to choose between any of the actual finishes, that's not saying the other finishes are bad. I'm not saying that at all. They all have their places. I'm not one to actually believe in lubeless finishes. When you have two pieces of metal that are scraping on each other, you want to have some kind of lubricant there, because of the friction. Chrome does very well for that as well, but you would still put a couple drops of oil in the inside of this thing. The other thing that's about the oil is too is you put a little bit of oil on the inside and outside. It makes cleaning the thing a lot easier too, as well as is easier on it. But again, I like the nickel boron, the Nybex. I use all those as well. But somebody was actually to back me in a corner and say, what is your favorite bolt carrier finish? This is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say chrome. If you look at the industry today, Reed Knight kept, and Gene Stoner kept the chrome-plated bolt carrier on the SR25. And Lewis Machine and Tool is another company that on their 308s has carried over to the chrome-plated carrier as well. It's standard. Now, there are other companies that do make chrome-plated carriers. Young Manufacturing, there's a few other ones on and off. But from my experience, this is probably the best one that's out there is the Smith Enterprises. This is just another, of my, rifles that I have built, hand-picked components. Again, that's the beauty of these rifles is I would never go to a gun shop and find a rifle in this configuration. Again, every single component was hand-picked. You probably got a dozen different manufacturers on here. You got Voltor, AXTS, you got Iron Viper, you got Aimpoint, Smith Enterprises, Veltor, Centurion Arms, FN. You have Manta. You have several different manufacturers on here that make the different components that make this thing up what it is. This rifle is it's a very accurate rifle. It's about an inch to inch and a quarter at 100 yards with 77 grain OTM. This is a combat barrel. It's not a matched target barrel. Cost-wise, this would not be a cheap rifle. You're probably looking around $2,000 by the time this was all said and done. But I'm very happy to be able to tell you that Radiant Arms is going to be releasing these for sale to the public, just lower receivers. And any of you guys who are left-handed, I would highly recommend you check these out. These are, again, extremely well made. Even for somebody who's not left-handed, I find myself grabbing the magazines like this on occasion. I definitely do like the ambidextrous bolt release. The Iron Viper charging handle, is awesome. And you will see, my staples as well too. You'll see the Magpul and you'll see the Voltor stock. what you see on everything. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please click like and please subscribe. Thank you.